Our hero has now ventured beyond the threshold of no return, past the village of our childhood, the walls of our beloved castle, now a far-off memory, a gilded cage from which we have now flown free. Nothing looks the same. Faces, places, and the tint that colors our world has melded, meshed, and transformed. An alien in a foreign land. Confusion and self-discovery is all a part of the journey now. Frightening as it may seem, we continue on, stepping one foot in front of the other, venturing forth, fumbling at times in the dark. The very next step is the beginning beyond the beginning, the mother beyond the mother. Quite possibly the darkness that awaits is yet another womb, poised to receive even the most lost and desperate soul. Maybe the journey was a call back to the safety of our gestalt, a place where we might heal and grow. But then again, how are we to know? And so with trepidation we step now onto the ledge, the abyss underfoot, as we inch forward, still clinging to its face. As our hearts beat hard and fast, we hear a familiar tune. Taken into the innermost chambers are a remembrance of its echo. It's rallied us time and time again, a whisper spurning us on, a melody which speaks of faith and of which we've heard before, calling us past the doubt of its existence, breaking the spell of form, of material and its making, not yet born into this new reality of which we have only felt, not seen, our bearings still being recalibrated, our senses restructured, our eyes adjusting to the light. Nevertheless, we heed what we understand now to be a rebirth into love. Carried on the winds of faith, we step forward into trust of a divine plan, even if it feels uncertain. Steadied, we understand it is time to tune out the static, lilt our ears towards the melody of the formless, and tune into the channel of our destiny. We've come this far. A trust fall is on the horizon. The only thing left to do is let go. Hello, beautiful beings of light. Welcome to the Galactic Energy Report. Wow, this has been an extremely powerful and in many ways disruptive energy cycle. And we are just getting into the thick of it as eclipse energy stays with us for a minimum of 6 months, and we have a double dose, so very close together, in combination with other major planetary grids of consciousness, all culminating in powerful shifts. So let's see if we can make sense of it all. When I last left you, and yes, I know it's been a while, I began feeling this energy quite a bit ahead of the collective, and I've needed to attend to my personal life with many major shifts. I have been tasked with looking at every single aspect of my material world and its foundations and bring it back into a state of balance. And it's been very indicative of what I'm going to be speaking to you about today. Specifically, my main lesson has been around boundaries, laying new foundations, and learning to receive, as well as bringing things within the material realm, within my relationship to various different aspects of the matrix into a state of balance. Even things I thought that I'd laid very positive foundations for or seemed to be working for me or that I perceived as already being progressive have been shaken up. And although I can see a path forward and it's all very positive, as a heavily placed Scorpio template man, I have been crazy busy and majorly tested. So I've got a lot of very exciting things cooking in the fire for Love Manifest. I don't want to speak prematurely about it, but a lot of things hopefully will be coming out over the next 6 months. But in the meantime, I would just ask that you be patient with my postings. As I understand, they are a little bit more spaced out than usual on the galactic energy reports. However, I have posted 2 poetry productions and a vlog post since the last energy report. And if you've missed that, please, please, please make sure to turn on the notification bell and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. But I know many of you are not getting notified of the videos that I'm putting out. All of the poetry productions are to help you process the energy. Most of the poetry the poetry productions I put out are channeled either via my higher self, Rhea, or the angelic realm. So the galactic energy reports are typically a product of the messages I receive from the Terra group, whereas the poetry is a little bit more, emoting a little bit more of the angelic realm, of the higher self. And they all have light codes and emotion invocation contained within them. So and for those of you that aren't acquainted with my personal story of being uniquely abled and also having a son who has special needs and how I'm transcending my own story, then please check out the vlog posts. I'm an integrated channel, an experiential channel, and many times it takes me having to experience these energies and come out on the other side to understand and truly integrate the messages I have been tasked with giving to the collective. So some of what I'm putting out via poetry productions it's a little bit, always a little bit ahead of linear time, but I will link it all in the comments, because definitely the last 2 that I've put out are very relative to this energy gateway and can absolutely assist you in integrating the energy. So, we're all walking this path together. I'm learning just as much as I'm delivering these messages, and we are all endeavoring this hero's journey together. So when I last left you, we had passed this point of no return. We were getting ready to take this leap of faith, and as with the entire year, this would be a time when we solidified the abundance matrix into the material realm, finished the convergence of timelines, and ultimately brought the vertical line of the etheric and the horizontal line of the material realm into a state of balance. And this energy gateway will be no exception, as we're working with the Taurus Scorpio axis, which is all about balancing giving and receiving, over-reliance with overproduction, energy taking and energy feeding, such as with energy vampires or pendulums. It's also going to be a heavily transformational time. This is where we get into the heart of the matter when it comes to pulling these fractaled aspects back into ourselves. And Scorpio is all about the karmic load we are releasing as a collective. A lot is going to get churned up from deep below, and we've discussed in depth in past reports that the scale not only had to oscillate before it was brought into a state of balance, but that you are going to see and feel this major theme of dissonance between the reality you are living and creating and the one that is being shown to you in the mirror. And we went in depth in the last energy report on how to really go about perceiving that mirror, how we're making this shift from the outside in to the inside out. And if you'd like more guidance around how you can navigate that dissonance, you can definitely check out the last energy report. So this is very multifaceted energy. It really took me a while to kind of piece all the puzzles together, because we have so many planetary bodies of consciousness and tethers all operating towards this aim of our expansion. One being the level of control of the narrative by those with darker agendas up until this point, and also, because you are the grid keepers, the way showers, the light workers. It's the reason and purpose for your being here and signing up during this time. You are holding the grid at a higher frequency in order to pull others up alongside you. You are that hero walking this path of destiny. We can observe it, yes, having compassion, absolutely. But we are not going to get pulled down into that energy. We've been there and we've done that. It's almost now like we can look back at ourselves as ourselves. And in this way, it helps us heal. Because it was just like a short time ago when we had that level of awareness. And so it's truly without judgment. And if you're like myself, where your reality is really moving into uncharted waters, where you're being called like way, way out of the matrix and mainstream, you aren't alone in that. So don't sink down into these energies of fear. You are exactly where you're supposed to be, following your internal guidance system. And so, it's this dissonance, this understanding that we're moving more into neutrality and more into the observer mode. And we have this greater understanding of the mirror of reality. Why there's this big dissonance has made the integration and explanation a little bit more complex to, delineate and tease out, because it's really now come to a point where we can see that we are in the fourth density. We are creating this abundance matrix, and our perspective has shifted quite a bit along the cycle, or even a little bit ahead of linear time, to such a degree that there is a huge demarcation in what we're seeing being churned up in the overall macro energies, and then what we're experiencing on the micro energy. I mean, it's all lending itself to a similar theme, but it's kind of where we're tapping in on this bandwidth is quite a big difference now than what we're seeing in the overall energies. We discussed the ongoing solar flares as a manifestation of the violet flame of transmutation, and how this year's energies were really going to unfold as a tightrope type of energies, taking a few steps forward and then pausing to rebalance, bringing not only our micro into a state of balance, but also how the macro too was on that same path, moving ever more firmly into the spiral of space-time known as fourth density. That the collective was moving through this dark night of the soul energy, as everything that was known prior is now being understood as illusion. Through this lens of the hero's journey, we have been examining the archetypal energies that we have at our disposal, and learning how to chord ever more higher on the bandwidth of any given energy that is presenting itself, collectively from the various planetary grids of consciousness. And this energy gateway is a heavily astrologically dominated energy, which is always a time of major shifts. And we discussed the energy of the Fool in the last report. We were poised on the edge of that cliff in the last, where I last left you. And now has come the time when we are jumping. We're taking this giant leap of faith. So with this energy gateway, we began with a solar eclipse in Taurus on April 30th. And we end with a full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio on the 15th or 16th, depending on where you are in the world. And I am actually recording this on the 15th, and it's probably going to post on the 17th. But remember, this is a gestational energy. It's not like, oh, the eclipse happened and now it's done. We are going into the womb and coming out the other side reborn. Typically, eclipse energy will stay with us for 6 months. It's a tether that begins working with us during the event and then continues on in its alchemy. And these two events are running on the Taurus Scorpio axis, which is all about, you guessed it, balance. It is a powerful time to understand and integrate what is coming to a close, whether that be a relationship, a habit, a belief system. It just doesn't fit in with the current frequency we are now embodying. It's just not working with our filters anymore. And I think we've tried. We've tried to incorporate as much as we could, take what we could. I'm seeing that image of the fool with his knapsack. And it's like we have this tiny little pack and we have everything laid out on the bed trying to see what exactly is going to fit into this, little knapsack or our suitcase and what will not. And we are beginning to discover after the eclipse that there are some things that aren't going to come with us. Try as however much we would like to stuff it into the bag. And we're asking ourselves the questions. Is this authentically mine? Or does it belong to someone else? Is this in alignment with my new frequency? Or am I trying to overextend myself? Am I giving from a place of enoughness? What are our motivations? Because these are core wounds being brought to the surface by the scorpionic energy. This is a primal energy tether that we either had met in our infancy or we did not. And remember, that was by choice, okay? So this in turn motivated all other beliefs and actions throughout our lives to date. And most of that was done from a subconscious perspective or from the tethering of the moon. And this could also be because it's such a primordial energy, this scorpionic energy. This could be past life. This could be things that have been playing out lifetime after lifetime. The Scorpio-Taurus axis is asking us to balance our giving and our receiving, and our motivations for both giving and receiving. Are we doing it from a space of a deeply rooted belief that our world is taking care of us, and even in troubling times, everything will be okay because we are safe and secure in this world? Or are we motivated by fear, by a belief that the world is out to get me and I am not inherently safe in this world? This is deep, deep energy, and you may be surprised by what comes to the surface from the depth of the subconscious mind. And the lunar eclipse is definitely going to highlight this. This is amplified, this eclipse, by a full moon. It's basically to the extreme. So a full moon is always about letting go, feelings and emotions coming to a head. Then you have the sign of Scorpio, which is an extremely deep emotion and what lies deep below the surface. It is the energy of death and rebirth, of transformation. Scorpio has 3 incantations or tethers of energy, and where you are in your frequency will determine the experience you have over the next 6 months. With the convergence of realities of timelines, I too feel that we can be experiencing several realities vying for their survival. So it may feel like a shift between them, where you're, experiencing from day to day, maybe 3 different timelines. And if you are in the observer mode, if you're in that state of awareness where you're really heightened to the experience that are manifesting in that reality, you may be able to begin to tease out which of those realities are which and which you prefer. There are 3 stages of scorpionic energy, and the first is the scorpion. So we can see this as a collective energy that's being transformed now, or we can see it as a move from the 3rd to the 4th to the 5th density experience. So body, mind, spirit. In the scorpion phase, which is where the collective is struggling to transcend from at this time, there is a low awareness and self-control, little to no self-control. So he or she is ruled by intense emotion and will go to any extent to destroy enemies, even at their own detriment. Power is derived from emotion and instinct, and regeneration comes through sexual experience. And so we can see that as the third density body phase, the outside in phase. The next stage of this energy or tether is the golden eagle. So now we are moving from body to mind, or from third to fourth density, because the eagle derives his power through the mind and through intellect. This can either take on an exalted energy or a deceptive one. Again, we are now in fourth density territory, and so this is where I see the collective moving from this stage of the scorpion to the golden eagle. So this is still going to be hallmarked by duality, psychological warfare, and manipulation on the lower end of the cords and tethers. In its exalted energy, the golden eagle possesses the power to see what others miss and can discover the deeper truths beneath the surface of life. They have accessed their wisdom and intuition to solve their personal problems and assists with the ails of others. Their keen sense of insight, infused with powerful intuition, allow them to quickly assess others and set about influencing them either positively or negatively. On the negative side, you will find the eagle using these powers to manipulate and gain power and control. We spoke in the last episode, I believe, or maybe it was the one prior, about the shift from the third to the fourth density, or the body to the mind. And in this case, it would be from the scorpion to the eagle, as to what was going on in the collective mirror and how it pertains to this shift from the third to the fourth density. Obviously understanding that we are in the infancy of the fourth density. But if we look recently as to how we can understand from that lens the shift from third to fourth density, if we look at this Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, okay, we can again see this same energy template playing out, this shift from the scorpion to the eagle. And if we take a look at this, maybe we can shed some awareness as to why are we seeing this right now, and these energies that we are discussing being played out in this way. So again, I want to state for the record that I do not condone abuse of any kind, that I will not share any personal opinions other than my own experience, and that this is an exercise in viewing the energy and psychology of the collective mirror. I'm sure that I didn't have to state that, but I do just want to put that out there for the record. And I have not watched the trial at length, nor would it be something I would heavily devote my energy to. I am looking at this from the standpoint of density and from the shift from the third to the fourth density. And I think what most people are missing here is that the archetypal energies are highlighting the tethers that come from feelings of lack and unworthiness, from shame. And this is, again, what the collective wound is trying to show us. This relationship was emblematic of shame and not enoughness, really, of the whole construct, the whole paradigm of the lack matrix, which cannot be bought with money. We see here that money has absolutely nothing to do with happiness and worth, that even those we previously admired and looked up to as demigods are indeed human and sadly unfulfilled and unhappy. I actually have several family members with borderline personality disorder, or BPD, and have been in close relationships with those with this program. I have also myself worked through PTSD and abusive childhood wounding, where I was in codependency dynamics in later relationship. And I guess I would like to place one other caveat here, that not all those suffering with any condition act and behave the same, and that each person is an individual, and that this and all illness runs on a spectrum of severity and frequency. And I have seen a huge online trend of vilifying many different mental illness, most of which, when understood from the perspective of energy, frequency, and programming, are not illness at all. And as a person who suffered from deep depression for many years, I understand so much more now as to why I had that experience than I did when I was in the midst of it. Also, as a heavily placed Scorpio template, I think that many of us with these templates are called on this journey to transform and shift these paradigms. You know, for me, the spiritual journey here in the third and later the fourth density is not only about placing yourself on a mountaintop and becoming enlightened. It's about getting into the experience and then ultimately transcending it, alchemizing it, and ultimately healing it for yourself and future generations. And I think many of us light workers came here to heal generational trauma, wounding, patterns, so to speak. So these are all templates that I'm well acquainted with from both sides of the coin. I know and deeply love several people suffering with BPD and have been wounded by it as well. I have also been in relationship with those struggling with addiction. And regardless of which side of the energy you fall on, it is deeply painful for them and for those of us that are in relationship with them, especially when it's not understood or it's viewed from the context of the self. And quite often it is those of us who were also wounded and abused in childhood, those of us who have suffered immense trauma, that gravitate towards these relationship templates as it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle of pain and hurt. It becomes an affirmation in shame and guilt. A wound that can never heal because it is just being reopened again and again and again. And instead of both of these individuals owning their truth and understanding that they are viewing the other through the lens of their core wounds, they instead chose to anchor into the energy of blame, of good and bad and right and wrong, and I am the victim and you are the abuser. And now it becomes who was worse, who began it all. A dissection of the harm perpetuated by the other in a desperate attempt to receive some sort of vindication, some sort of resolution to the pain and shame and guilt, when ultimately that can only ever come from the self. Instead of asking the self, how did I attract energy like this? What is this showing me about my values and beliefs? What is this showing me about my core wounds? Instead, this is now moved into a public space for everyone to judge them and shame them and put on display their fears and perceived inadequacies. Again, we are seeing this through a narrative where there are teams and camps, where if you're in the right camp, it's okay to judge and blame and direct the same aggression you are judging at another individual, where now it is clear to see how the energy just self-renews. And honestly, how pendulums work. Instead of taking this as an opportunity to look at mental illness, addiction, and maladaptive relationship patterns, which are clearly at an unprecedented high given the fallout of the pandemic pendulum, it has been used by the narrative creators as a perpetuation, not a healing modality. Televised, right? And used to perpetuate an ideology of exploitation and goodies and baddies. And so we can look at this as a very tangible example of the Scorpio-Taurus axis and of the transformation from the Scorpio to the eagle in its shadow, not in its exaltation. So there's clearly a lot of work yet to be done on a collective front, where the lower aspects of this energy are being used, and we can see it being brought up from deep below the surface of what's been hiding behind the walls of not only Hollywood, but generational templating of abuse, shame, guilt, lack, addiction, not enoughness, etc. And, although it is a shift from the third to the fourth density experience, it's still, from the perspective of expansion, a space and place where I think there's going to be a lot more of this coming up. I think that this axis, this Scorpio-Taurus axis, and certainly the Scorpionic energy is all about, secrets coming to light and the shadow coming into the light of day, transformational templating, deep emotions. It rules, all of these aspects of lower vibrational cords and tethers. So I do believe that this is just the beginning of some of the truths that are going to be dug up and unearthed. I suppose the response, maybe in, different communities, echelons, where it's been heavily pumped out by the narrative creators, is still a little bit disheartening. But, to understand, again, it's just kind of that same message that keeps coming through, is to hold fast to where you're at, understand you're going to be experiencing dissonance from where you're experiencing your layer of reality and where, some of the collective is still experiencing their layer of reality, and that we are moving into growth and expansion. It just is coming in a very dualistic, somewhat painful, transformative energy. So the third and final transformation of the Scorpionic energy is the Phoenix. Again, all the stages of the journey of Scorpio revolve around the struggle of balance. So the final stage is rebirth. After a complete ego death and once extreme Scorpion has now been tempered, reborn from the ashes, renewed and rejuvenated as the Phoenix, representing the capacity for empathetic observation without judgment. Okay, breaking the chains of attachment and having learned the lessons of letting go, we have moved into the last energy, or the last phase of the Scorpio template. And what does this sound like? This sounds like fifth density. This sounds like neutrality. And many a light worker and grid keeper has already been working towards this level of neutrality and the ability for several years to stay in observation mode. And it's quite possible that the bulk of your frequency will now be resonating in this space after this gateway has done its work with you, which will only then help buoy the collective up and allow you to then look back in non-judgment, in non-duality, and offer your compassion, hold space, give, aid and service where applicable and when able, and move through this transformational period. So as we enter this womb, this darkness, what are we transforming and what are we growing into? Are the questions we should be asking ourselves. Do we see the darkness as safety and womb-like, or are we afraid of what lurks there? Do we see the world as ultimately good and taking care of us even when we hit troubling times? Or do we see the world as an unsafe place where we are not safe within it? And understanding that most of this being, coming up now is from infancy or past life. And that may really require you to work on some of your lower chakras, to get back into a grounded, safe place in your layer of reality. Because there will be a lot of intensity of feeling. This is now a time when any lingering tethers of deeply held emotional or formative experience in this lifetime and in many others will be coming to the surface. Things that you thought you had healed, moved through, forgotten, this is going to show you, and probably already has been showing you, where there are still some hooks. And it may be surprising to you, the intensity of emotion, the way you're falling back into old roles. I've had some super intense feelings that have actually kind of surprised me. Again, things I thought that I'd completely healed. But in keeping with this idea of moving into the womb, it's safe to look at it now, right? to let it wash over you and through you, because we have the tools now to manage and handle the things that we may not have had the capacity to cope with previously. And finally, working its way into the mix is a Mercury retrograde, which began on the 10th of May. So if you've followed me for a while, then you'll remember that when I previously channeled the consciousness of Mercury, I found that this is the winged messenger of the gods, the consciousness of angelic intervention and communication. This is where we receive balance through the mind and our autonomic nervous system. And during these times of retrograde, our ability to integrate and assimilate the messages from the heart and mind and bring them into a state of unison are done. We're balancing the nervous system. We are coming to an agreement between the heart and mind. Everything slows down, and we actually need this mental break right now. We need the time to go through this transformation, to go into this gestalt, into this womb-like energy. Yes, we're still going to be experiencing forward motion and busyness, and it's kind of this dual energy working with us. It's transforming, it's moving through us, it's forward motion, but it's kind of at a slowed down pace of a gestation. So it's a time where we can look at all of our contracts, our communications, our plans for the future, and revise, revamp, and reassess. It's also a time when any relationships, like with siblings or from the past, may resurface, either for rejuvenation or to show us why we closed the door in the first place. So this retrograde is actually a very welcomed energy to be working with during all of this intense transformational energy and alchemy. And that energy is going to be with us until June 3rd. So it gives us a few weeks to work with it. And then from that point, we're going to start seeing more full speed ahead. Again, it begins in Gemini, which is all about duality and coming into a unison with our shadow and our light. And then it moves into Taurus on the 23rd. Once again, amplifying that axis, that Taurus Scorpio axis, and what steps need to be taken in our material reality. So I really feel that from that point forward, we're going to start seeing things really ramp up, especially given the emphasis on giving and receiving, the material world, revision of just pretty much everything, contracts, plans, daily schedules, where we see ourselves going in the next, actually probably 2 to 3 years. It's going to be starting now, from this energy portal moving forward into the next 2 to 3 years. So those are the major players that we're working with right now. We had Jupiter move from Pisces to Aries on the 11th of May. And so again, that was more of this expansion energy into the pioneer and the warrior type energy, depending on where you were recording into that. And then we have this 12-year cycle that Jupiter is running on. So that's going to be bringing up some 0-degree energy, fresh start energy. We're going to be breaking ground on a whole new 12-year cycle. And again, that goes right along with the strength, resilience, finding the hero within yourself, this hero's journey. We also have Uranus that runs on an 84-year cycle, and it's now moving into Taurus. So again, we have a new cycle, a new beginning, truth, freedom, a lot of galactic energies. So it's all really coming into a symphonic convergence, an alchemy, or a harmonic resolution, if you will, to really begin to take this dive, this leap of faith. And ultimately, what this whole energy cycle is going to do for us is build our resilience. It's going to allow us to develop a new relationship with faith. It's going to allow us to operate even in a space of uncertainty. We've been pushed more and more into this space of uncertainty as the year has unfolded. And that's something we're going to need to get comfortable with. And the only way we can get comfortable with that is through our relationship with faith and through developing our tools of discernment and intuition. Because we're now in the fourth density abundance matrix. This is all about moving from the initiate into the adept. And the energy is cycling faster. Manifestations are cycling faster. And in order to do that, we can't be bringing all this baggage with us. We have to be ready for this new start. We have to be okay with uncertainty. We have to have developed our relationship with faith. We have to be following our internal guidance system and really feel rooted and grounded in the safety of the reality in which we are creating. So that is the long and the short and the in and the out and everything in between. I hope you all were able to take away something from this energy report. I hope that you're traversing these uncharted waters as smoothly as possible. And ultimately, keep in mind that even if things get a little crazy, if they get a little chaotic, if they shake, if they crumble, if they fall, that it's all for our benefit, that all is well, and it's safe to jump. It's safe to take that dive. I'm sending you all big, 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 big love. Bye.
Just wanted to say I love ya. Scully loves ya. Bye.